It has finally been confirmed that Dragon Ball Daima will set the stage for the next sagas of Dragon Ball Super, and the Namekian Neva is expected to play a very important role in what's to come. Besides that, I'm finally able to bring you the explanation behind Super Saiyan 4 in Dragon Ball Daima and how this transformation can be used by other Saiyans in the series. Guys, seriously, there's a ton of cool information in this video, and I'm absolutely sure you'll learn at least one new thing here. So stick around until the end, you won't regret it. Stay connected in the channel, and let's go to the video. I remember that when Dragon Ball Daima first started, a lot of people were doubting whether this anime would be canon or not. But now, it's been more than proven that yes, Dragon Ball Daima is canon and takes into account the events of Dragon Ball Super. However, the next big question fans had was how Dragon Ball Super would connect to Daima, considering that a lot of what's happening in Daima should have already been mentioned in DBS, like Goku and Vegeta's new transformations, for example. But now it has finally been confirmed once and for all that these stories will be connected, and in fact, Dragon Ball Daima will influence the next saga of Dragon Ball Super. And this isn't just me saying it, guys. The Dragon Ball producers themselves have stated that Dragon Ball Daima is an introduction to the upcoming sagas of Dragon Ball Super. This means we need to pay close attention to what's happening in Dragon Ball Daima, especially now that we're in the final stretch. Looking at the most recent events in Dragon Ball Daima, there's no doubt that the most impactful thing so far has been the introduction of a new transformation, the Super Saiyan 4. However, just as the appearance of Super Saiyan 4 excited a lot of people, everyone has to agree that it raises a huge question about how the existence of this form will be explained in Dragon Ball Super, right? Since it's kind of weird that this transformation was never mentioned before. But this transformation will appear in Dragon Ball Super, and when it does, it will have a much more well-developed explanation. Taking a closer look at the scene where Super Saiyan 4 first appeared in Dragon Ball Daima, I have an idea of what might be behind this transformation, and I can already imagine how this form could be introduced in Dragon Ball Super. Pay close attention to what I'm about to say because you'll see that it makes a lot of sense. Like, a lot of sense. If the Dragon Ball producers use the explanation I'm about to give, Dragon Ball's intellectual level will definitely rise, and no one will be able to say that Dragon Ball is a shallow and dumb series like some fans of certain ninjas claim. Alright, let's get to it. Pay close attention now. When Neva uses his powers on Goku, the scene kind of suggests that Neva's magic acted deep inside Goku. And when I say deep inside, I mean the deepest thing a person has, their DNA. DNA is a person's genetic code. Everything you are is in your DNA. And the interesting thing is that a person's DNA carries things they don't even realize, things passed down from their ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm talking about people from thousands or even millions of years ago. You, for example, carry genetic information in your DNA from people who lived centuries and millennia ago, all the way back to prehistoric times. Another interesting thing about the genetic information in DNA is that there are traits in your genetic code that never even manifest in your body, but they're still there. Among these, I want to talk to you about something called atavism. Do you know what that is? Probably not. But believe it or not, this scientific concept will make you realize why Goku's tail reappearing in this transformation makes total sense. Well, the word atavism has different meanings depending on the field of study, but to put it simply and concisely, atavism is the return to a state, characteristic, or behavior of ancestors, whether at a biological, behavioral, or cultural level. In the field of philosophy and culture, this term can be used quite broadly to define the return of a person or a society to customs, ideas, or practices of the past, whether in fashion, politics, or other aspects of society. In anthropology and sociology, this term is used to describe behaviors or social characteristics that hark back to more primitive stages of humanity. For example, Some 19th century theories believed that certain criminal tendencies were a return to more savage and primitive states of human nature. But for us here, what matters is atavism from the perspective of biology and genetics. In these fields of study, this term is used when there is a reappearance of ancestral traits in an organism that were not present in recent generations. This can occur due to the reactivation of genes that had been inactive for several generations. In other words, it's when a living being displays a characteristic that only its ancestors had. It would be like a tiger being born today, with fangs the size of a saber-toothed tiger's, for example. And believe it or not, this happens with humans too. It's rare, but there are people who are born with ancestral traits. Now, drawing a parallel with Dragon Ball, I'm going to tell you something that might shock you. Did you know that some humans are born with tails? That's right, guys. Because of our ancestors, the genetic trait for a tail exists in humans. However, it's a recessive trait, meaning it no longer manifests in the vast majority of people today. But the genetic information for a tail is still in us. In fact, if you observe a fetus during the early stages of gestation, you can see that a small tail-like structure starts to form, but then it regresses and the tail doesn't develop. However, in rare cases, some people actually develop tails, which is crazy. Of course, it looks really strange since we're not used to seeing people with tails. And since it's a very ancient genetic trait, it doesn't form into a perfect tail like we see in monkeys or most other animals. But this doesn't just happen with tails. Some people also show other ancestral traits, like animal-like body hair and other characteristics. I use the tail as an example because it fits Dragon Ball perfectly. Now, going back to Dragon Ball, I'm starting to believe that what Neva did with his magic was precisely activate the dormant genetic data of the Saiyans within Goku. By activating these genes, he awakened this ancestral Saiyan genetics, which is why Goku's tail grew back after so long and he developed fur. Essentially, Goku brought out the ancestral genes of the Saiyans, a race deeply connected to monkeys, possibly even being monkeys themselves in the distant past. And if my theory is correct, then technically any Saiyan has the potential to access Super Saiyan 4, as long as their ancestral genes are activated. Guys, in Dragon Ball Super, we've already seen at least 2 other Saiyans who have some connection to this more ancestral side of the Saiyan race. The first and most obvious example is Broly. Remember when I talked about atavism from the perspective of anthropology and sociology and how people can revert to ancestral behavioral states? Well, Broly is basically that. When he starts going berserk, Broly embodies that wild nature that Saiyans of the past had. This ancestral Saiyan side manifests in him primarily through rage. And speaking of rage, maybe Gohan has a bit of that too, since he seems to have a special connection to anger and hidden power, even more so than other Saiyans. So, Goku, Vegeta, Broly, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, all of them are potential Super Saiyan 4s. It might be harder for Goten and Trunks since they're only half Saiyan, and they seem to have even fewer Saiyan traits than Gohan, considering that Gohan was born with a tail while they weren't. Like I said at the beginning, Dragon Ball Daima is going to influence the future sagas of DBS, and in Daima, we have Neva, who could play a major role in many unanswered mysteries in Dragon Ball Super. For example, along with the explanation of Super Saiyan 4, Neva could also provide insight into Gohan's beast form, which might have a connection to this ancestral Saiyan side. Another thing Neva could definitely explain is Piccolo's orange transformation, which still doesn't have a convincing explanation beyond being a gift from Shenron. But the Earth's dragon shouldn't be capable of granting that much power out of nowhere without some kind of reason. And of course, maybe Neva could unlock an absolutely insane power in Broly, fully unleashing his ancestral side. All I know is that Frieza is ridiculously powerful, far beyond the Saiyans. And maybe, with just regular training, they won't be able to defeat him. But there's still a very big chance that Frieza won't be the next main villain, and in fact, this next major villain could be even more powerful than him. So, for the Saiyans to evolve that much, they might need something beyond pure training. Neva could be a great option, giving the group this power boost while also explaining their new abilities. But alright, why would Neva only show up now, after so many years? Well, since the character hadn't been conceived before Dragon Ball Daima, naturally, he was never mentioned. But now, they can just come up with any excuse for his appearance. Dragon Ball has always been the kind of story that gives really simple explanations for things happening, and now they're doing that more than ever. So they can just make something up, like suddenly remembering Neva and the demon realm out of nowhere. Another option would be for the new DBS saga to have a part of it set in the demon realm. I can think of a few ways that could happen. A good way would be for a Meijin to be the next major villain of Dragon Ball Super, like I've already suggested in a theory a few videos ago. With Neva's special training and the gang finally understanding the transformations, the Saiyans would definitely learn to use Super Saiyan 4 on their own, without needing Neva's help. When Neva boosted the powers of Tamagami number 2 against Vegeta, Tamagami's aura looked somewhat similar to the aura Goku showed in Super Saiyan 4, but Tamagami number 1 knows how to reach this more powerful state. Similar to number 2, without Neva's help, he did it against Majin Buu. So, if Tamagami number 1 can access this power up on his own, Goku and the others can probably do it too. And then, we'd see Super Saiyan 4 being used freely in Dragon Ball Super, but combined with other transformations and abilities. But that's a topic for another video. Now, comment down below if you'd like to see the Namekian Neva return to the story and train the Z Warriors in some way, while also explaining their new transformations. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a friend who's a Dragon Ball fan. Also, don't forget to check out our Patreon if you'd like to support the channel's productions and get some perks from us. The link is in the video description and the pinned comment. That's it guys, see you next time.